print disability, which makes reading, holding a book, or turning a page difficult or impossible. The content is copyrighted by the respective publishers. For more information, please visit us on the web at nfradioreading.org.
Hello, this is Paul Denning, and for the next hour I'll be reading from current issues of the Lockport Union-Sun and Journal on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. This is the Union-Sun from April 25th and 26th. A look at Pathstone's work. This is written by Heidi Trushell Light. With the future of the Bewley Building in mind, an alderman visits a completed Pathstone housing project and walks away hopeful. What was once the Albion Grammar School at 16 East Academy Street, Albion, is now a 30-unit apartment house for people over age 65 with 2 ground-level commercial spaces. To learn more about the work of Pathstone Development, which proposes to renovate the Bewley Building, 4th Ward Alderman Catherine Fogel this week toured the Pathstone remodel in Albion. The Common Council is scheduled to meet with Pathstone representatives about the proposed Bewley Building project, 100 affordable apartment units above street-level commercial spaces, next Wednesday during its 5 p.m. work session at City Hall. During her tour, Fogel asked Joshua Frost, Director of Real Estate Development for Pathstone Development Corporation, and Charlie Oster, Vice President of Real Estate Development for Edgemere Development, whether the companies would be involved in the Bewley Building after renovation, and if the building could be resold. Frost said Pathstone would remain the on-site property manager for the Bewley Building. He said the tax credits that are part of the project's financing require a 15-year commitment, and the state attaches a 50-year regulatory agreement to that, which prevents a sale for that period. Quotes, "It's because the state wants to preserve affordability beyond the tax credits," Frost said. Albion property manager Sean LaFleur led the tour at the former school, showing Fogel the small library that allows residents to swap books, utility features, the community room, and the Meals on Wheels headquarters located on the ground floor. In the upstairs laundry room, Fogel asked a resident named Kathy whether she liked living there. "It's great because everything is right in the building," Kathy said. "I don't even have to go outside in the winter for my mail." Fogel said she was impressed with the quality of the building and how Pathstone is managing it. "It was like the Titanic in there with that staircase," Fogel said. "It was beautiful. I would be willing to live there with those big windows." The 4-story, 55,000 square foot building, raised in 1906, was constructed from the sandstone that made Orleans County famous. The original wood moldings throughout the building have been restored, including the multi-floor curving spindle staircase. What visitors first notice is the furnished lobby entrance with refinished wood wainscoting and stamped tin ceilings that recall the building's historic origins. Original Corinthian columns from the school auditorium were relocated to the community room, which features a stamped ceiling, iron chandeliers, and a wall of windows letting in sunlight. The room has an adjoining full kitchen and nearly a dozen tables with seating. "I would hold birthday parties in that room," Fogel said. Speaking of a future for the Bewley Building under Pathstone's management, Fogel said, "It's exciting that it will still be there." The next article was written also by the Lockport Journal, Joyce Miles. Support system for parents is shutting down. State funding loss forcing closure of Lockport-based Family Opportunity Center. It's the end of the line for the Niagara County Family Opportunity Center, a one-of-a-kind drop-in center for parents seeking advice and resources to support their children. The staffed space at City Center, 175 Walnut Street, has been operated by EPIC, which stands for Each Person Influences Children, with $300,000 annual funding from the State Office of Children and Family Services since mid-2023. The state agency announced late last year that it will no longer fund family opportunity centers, and funding for the Niagara County Center would cease on April 30. The news is devastating to the staff and the hundreds of families that have dropped in regularly over the past few years. In addition to being a place where parents can learn some of the science of parenting through the widely recognized evidence-based Positive Parenting Program, Triple P, and developmental workshops, the center is a place where their children can play, learn, and benefit from family bonding time. The Niagara County Family Opportunity Center has been a godsend for Cordo Kaba, 34, as she's raising 3 children, a 3-year-old, a 6-year-old, and an 8-year-old with autism. Kaba said and her husband moved to Lockport 8 years ago, and when she discovered the Family Opportunity Center, she said, "I felt welcomed for the first time. Having a place to go with my kids and not feel awkward was wonderful. It's hard to go places with a special needs child." Thanks to the center, Kaba said she learned how to deal effectively with certain behaviors of her eldest child. She has brought all of her children there regularly, as it's a place where she can de-stress while they play. The child-friendly decor, the nifty toys and play sets, and the special touches, such as a calming corner, were all designed and appointed by the center staff, 8 employees who've all been there since the center opened, according to Director Ashley Green. Excuse me. We built this place together, built the furniture, stocked the toys, Green said. We wanted to be light and bright and fun for families. The center's imminent closure is very heavy, Green said. Obviously, I'm worried about the staff, but I'm very worried about the parents and children. Parents who turn to the center need to know how to work with their kids, and the stressors on them are increasing. Nothing else like it. EPIC, based in Buffalo, is a nonprofit organization that aims to prevent child abuse and neglect by offering parenting education, family engagement opportunities, youth services, and professional development. The organization has long had a presence in Niagara County through its parenting and family programs. The Niagara County Family Opportunity Center represents its first physical presence here. A summary prepared for prospective funders states, quotes, "The center operates as a walk-in prevention hub, removing financial and referral barriers that often prevent families from accessing early support. Through the center, free of charge, families have had access to Triple P, family bonding activities such as story time and field trips with meals provided, supplemental resources, and parent-child open play opportunities up to 6 days per week. They've also had access to the Give and Take Pantry, a cupboard inside the center entrance where parents can leave their excess childcare supplies, including clothing items, for others to take as needed. Green said the center has played host to a pair of very popular swaps among families, a Halloween costume swap and a Christmas-time toy swap, both of which were suggested by the center's Parent Advisory Committee. Families were not required to donate any costumes or toys in order to shop the swaps. The center has also been a kid-friendly place where parents can bring their preschool-age children to receive county-funded early intervention therapy services, and where parents at risk of losing custody of their child are referred by social services to receive parenting instruction and coached visitation, again in a relaxed setting. Excluding the county referrals, since it opened, the Niagara County Family Opportunity Center has served more than 700 families who collectively have dropped in for programs or respite more than 5,000 times. The families have come from across the county, including Niagara Falls, when transportation is offered, though the majority reside in the Lockport area, according to EPIC Director Tara Burgess. Among the 400-plus families that have consumed one or more services through the center in the past year, Green said 87% are low income, 23% are ALICE families, which stands for Asset Limited Income Restrained but Employed, living paycheck to paycheck. 30% include a child with a disability, and 92% have disclosed at least one risk factor for child abuse or neglect. The center has provided a support system for families that don't have one at home, someone to say that's normal versus that's concerning, Burgess said. We help give parents tools and resources to be good parents. There's a real cost to the lack of prevention services, she added. Cordo Cava, who's one of the 10 parents appointed to the center's Parent Advisory Committee, said one of the most valuable things she received from the center was a tip about the Parent Network of Western New York, a nonprofit organization that helps parents of children with special needs understand their disability and navigate the support service system. One of the things I love about EPIC is they listen to the parents, she said. I really hope the center stays. It makes a huge difference in my life and for so many other families. It welcomes everyone. There is no eligibility requirement, such as limited income or a professional referral. There's nothing else like it here. Community programming will continue. In an attempt to keep the Niagara County Family Opportunity Center open, EPIC sought replacement funding from public and private charitable sources, Burgess said. However, as of mid-month, the organization had only secured, quotes, a bit less than half of the $300,000 it's needed, Green said, so the staff starting winding down the operation. There were no open play hours posted this week. The grant from OCFS covered operating costs of the staffed drop-in center, but not its community programming, field trips with meals, paint nights, and other activities that families normally don't do because of the cost. Green said she got other grants to cover those programs, and they will continue even if the center is closed. Family fun nights are underwritten by the Greg Lewis Foundation. Zambini, a movement and music class for children ages 4 and younger and their caregivers, is funded by United Way of Greater Niagara. EPIC's Summer Storytime series, also funded by the United Way and providing children with a story-related craft and play activity, as well as a book to take home afterward, will be held in both Lockport and Niagara Falls this year, Green said. You're listening to a reading of articles and features from the Lockport Union-Sun Journal on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. Sensory Playroom opened in Niagara Falls. The Niagara County Department of Health Children with Special Needs Division opened a new sensory playroom at the Trot Access Center in Niagara Falls on April 17th. The state grant-funded space features inclusive open play times for any Niagara County family meeting children and youth with special health care needs eligibility criteria, along with scheduled individual or small group sessions. An equipment lending library from which enrolled families may borrow sensory toys and specialized equipment to use at home, a parent coffee bar, and on-site staff to provide referrals and navigate additional supports. Janice Janashek, director of the county's Children with Special Needs program, said the opening of the sensory playroom was not related to the pending closure of the Niagara County Family Opportunity Center. When the health department secured funding for the playroom, the decision was made to site it in Niagara Falls because EPIC already offered something similar in Lockport. The subsequent loss of funding for the latter space is a blow for sure, she said. While access to the sensory playroom is limited to families that meet eligibility criteria, the list of qualifying health conditions and developmental delays is very broad, Janashek said. Any of 27 different conditions, including asthma and diabetes, open up the room to families with children up to 21 years old. Household income is not a factor, she added. Families enrolled in early intervention or preschool special education programs also can utilize the sensory playroom for therapy sessions with their existing providers. Next article, also written by Heidi Truschell from the Lockport Journal. Lockport provides its 26 paving list. Road construction season in the town of Lockport will open in mid-May with the milling and paving of Dorchester, Corwin, and Newcastle roads, along with Snyder and Neal drives. This week, Highway Superintendent Jim Rook told the town board that there will be several rounds of road work, which are groupings of adjacent streets so that heavy equipment can move directly from one street to another. Streets will be paved immediately so they can be added to a list for the town's striping contractor to paint, Rook said. Some rounds may not begin immediately after each other, he added. This year's list of town street paving jobs carries an $803,000 price tag and will require nearly 9,800 tons of blacktop. The complete list for 2026 includes milling and paving for Woodlawn Drive, Brookside Drive, Meadowview Drive, Pinecrest Drive, Erica Lane, Lockwood Lane, Rieger Drive, Locust Street Extension from the city line to Ham Road, Locust Street Extension from Ham to Beatty Avenue, Day Road from the Erie Canal to Chestnut Ridge Road, Route 31, Cold Springs Road from the Railroad Bridge to Route 31. Groff Road will receive oil and stone. Niagara Street Extension from West Jackson to the city line will receive an overlay. Alternate roads include Lincoln Avenue Extension, Winecoop Road, and Scheimer Drive from South Transit Road to Locust Street Extension. Town engineer Robert Clavoon said a briefing by the State Department of Transportation indicated that milling the South Transit Road would begin after Memorial Day, and paving would begin June 13. Local news. Navy Marine Club aids monument upkeep. Navy Marine Club Ship 110 of Lockport has donated money to support beautification of Niagara County's Purple Heart Monument and surrounding courtyard outside the county courthouse. Niagara became a Purple Heart County in 2019 and dedicated the Purple Heart Monument in 2023. The Purple Heart is awarded to those wounded or killed as a result of enemy action while serving in the U.S. military. Nearly 500 county residents who received a Purple Heart are listed on the monument and in the Purple Heart book, which is on display in the courthouse rotunda. We thank Commander Teresa Manna and all the members of the Navy Marine Club for their generous donation that allows us to enhance the monument and surrounding courtyard so veterans, their families, and other community members can visit and reflect on these great heroes who sacrificed so much serving our country, County Clerk Joseph Jastrzemski said. Next article. Slots available in OIC's Junior Sailing Program. Alcott Yacht Club Women's Yachting Association and the Mantle Club are offering scholarships to the Junior Sailing Program at OIC. Several levels of instruction are taught in the program with an emphasis on safety, fun, sportsmanship, cooperation, and competition. Sessions are taught by U.S. Sailing and American Red Cross certified instructors. Instructors use the U.S. Sailing Association format, which offers several years of developmental skills in sailing, theory, timing, balance, racing, and seamanship. For an application, call Yachting Association Chairperson Linda Rosenbaum at 716-778-5153. Completed applications are due in early June. Next article. Registration open for medication safety program. UB's Team Alice will present two-part workshop at Keenan Center starting Wednesday. Do you want to feel more confident about your medications and know how to advocate for your health or the health of a loved one? The University of Buffalo's Team Alice medication safety program is now enrolling older adults and caregivers for an upcoming free medication safety and patient empowerment presentation series at the Keenan Center. Adults ages 55 and older who take prescription medications may be eligible to participate. Caregivers age 18 and older, both informal and formal, are also welcome to participate and do not need to reside with the eligible individual. The program aims to empower older adults and caregivers with practical tools to prevent and recognize medication-related harm. Sessions explore the prevalence and risks of medication errors through the Alice story, a real-life case based on the preventable death of Alice Brennan, highlighting system failures and opportunities for safer medication practices. Inspired by the life and tragic death of Lockport resident Alice Brennan following a 6-week cascade of preventable medication harm and system failures, Team Alice was founded by Alice's daughter, Mary Brennan Taylor, along with Dr. Ranjit Singh and Dr. Robert Waller to drive positive change among healthcare professionals and across the healthcare system. Team Alice is a nationally unique interprofessional research education and advocacy group affiliated with UB. Members include scientists, educators, clinicians, and advocates working to spread awareness of unsafe prescribed medication use, reduce harm, and foster successful aging. The devastating and preventable toll of medication harm in the older adult population is staggering, Brennan Taylor said. It is estimated that 42% of older adults take 5 or more medications daily, which increases the risk of an adverse event, with 750 older adults hospitalized every day due to adverse drug events from medications. Referring to the workshop as part of her mom's legacy, Brennan Taylor said it is designed specifically to provide seniors and caregivers with the ability to detect medication harm and the tools to advocate for themselves and communicate effectively with healthcare providers about medication safety. Participation includes 2 educational sessions and a brief 6-month follow-up, along with questionnaires at each session. Non-caregiver participants will also be asked to provide a medication list at 2 time points. Session 1 will be held April 29, next Wednesday, and Session 2 will be held May 6th, both from 1 to 3 p.m. Participants must attend both sessions. Space is limited to 20 participants. To sign up, call 716-433-2617. Next article, 2 DeSales students receive Mullane Family Scholarship. Many years ago, the Mullane family established a scholarship at DeSales Catholic School in the name of their father, Jack, a graduate of DeSales Catholic High School and the University of Notre Dame, and a longtime supporter of Catholic education. The annual scholarship is awarded to a student who will be attending Catholic high school. After reviewing this year's applicants, the Mullane family chose to give 2 $3,000 awards. The Mullane family does so much for DeSales and Catholic education. These scholarships are just one example of their commitment and generosity, Principal Karen Rahill said. Award recipient Noah Oliveri is a member of the DeSales soccer, bowling, and basketball teams, the morning announcement crew, and the St. Francis Society. His classmates describe him as kind, thoughtful, compassionate, intelligent, and patient. Of his experience attending DCS, Noah said, "I have met some of my best friends here and truly am excited to come to school every day." Noah is the son of Krista Oliveri and Christopher Oliveri, both of Lockport. He will continue his education at St. Joseph's Collegiate Institute in the fall. Award recipient Evelyn Schuster has been a valued member of the DeSales Mass Choir, robotics team, chess club, and the St. Francis Society. Her classmates admire her confidence, kindness, and determination. I am proud to be a recipient of this scholarship. It means a lot to me and my family, she said. Evelyn is the daughter of Paul and Julie Schuster of Middleport. She will attend St. Mary's of Lancaster in the fall. You are listening to a reading of articles and features from the Lockport Union-Sun Journal on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. Turning now to the opinion page. Here's an opinion from Douglas Uzlak who is the retired Chief Executive Officer of Western New York Independent Living family of agencies, which empowers individuals with disabilities to participate fully in society. In order to form a more perfect union. As an advocate for people with disabilities, I always told my staff, we don't advocate against, we advocate for. I say this because the moment you speak out against something, the people you hope to reach often begin, consciously or not, to look for reasons to disagree. When you speak to the value of what you are asking for, people are more likely to listen and consider how it applies to the issue at hand. I begin this column with that perspective, not to diminish the importance of national defense, but to ask you to consider a broader responsibility. 40 years ago, I received a call from my cousin, who was 32 at the time, and had recently lost her mother. Because of her developmental and intellectual disabilities, including cerebral palsy, none of her extended family in New York City were able to take her in. Facing the prospect of spending the rest of her life in a nursing home, she called and asked me for help. At the time, I was serving as CEO of Western New York Independent Living, Inc., family of agencies. So my fiancée and I flew down, rented a small truck, and helped her move into her own apartment with the supports she needed. Later, she chose to build a life in Buffalo and became an active part of the community. She found a job, participated in neighborhood activities, stayed connected to family, and lived with a level of independence that once seemed out of reach. Eventually, she made the decision to move to Tennessee, where she lives today. Why am I telling you this? Because those outcomes were made possible through programs and services now administered by the Administration on Community Living. Those same programs, 4 decades later, are now being proposed for elimination and redirection toward military spending. In explaining this budget shift, the president stated, quotes, "It's not possible for us to take care of daycare, Medicaid, Medicare, all these individual things. They can do it on a state basis. You can't do it on a federal. We have to take care of one thing, military protection. We have to guard the country." I beg to differ, sir. We can support our national defense and people with disabilities. We can protect our country while ensuring that our friends and families with disabilities have the support they need to live and work in their communities. Even within the President's own statement, there is an acknowledgement that these programs are essential. The issue is not their worth, but the decision to pull resources away from them, despite clear evidence that they reduce reliance on high-cost institutional care and save taxpayers billions over time. Programs funded through the Administration on Community Living support millions of Americans while helping states avoid far more expensive institutional placements. In that context, these investments are not excess. They are cost-effective, long-term solutions, freeing up and redirecting tax dollars. By comparison, current military operations are costing hundreds of millions, sometimes billions, in a matter of a day. Individual weapons systems alone can run from tens of thousands to tens of millions apiece. I do not claim to fully understand every national security threat, and I do support maintaining a strong defense. At the same time, I have seen what's possible when a country invests in the well-being of its people. When we support access to health care, education, and community-based services, we create conditions where people can grow, contribute, and live with dignity. The preamble of the Constitution reminds us of that balance. Quotes, "We, the people of the United States, in order to form a more perfect union, establish justice, ensure domestic tranquility, provide for the common defense, promote the general welfare, and secure the blessings of liberty. The responsibility is not one or the other. It has always been both. We are called to do both. The next opinion is a commentary from Stephen Roberts. Stephen teaches politics and journalism at George Washington University. This is entitled A Choice, Not an Echo. Virginia voters decided this week to give state legislators the power to redraw congressional boundaries for next fall's elections. It's a big win for Democrats, who could gain as many as 4 additional seats once the new maps are adopted. But it's a disastrous defeat for democracy. The Virginia vote is only the latest outbreak of partisan chicanery that has created dozens of safer districts for both parties across the country. And let's be clear, it was Donald Trump who instigated this terrible trend. The president is petrified the Democrats will gain control of the House of Representatives and use that platform to bedevil his last 2 years in office. So, excuse me. So he pressured Republican legislators in Texas and other states to alter congressional districts in ways that bolster GOP chances of retaining the majority, which they now hold by a tiny margin. Most Democrats know this redistricting binge is a dreadful idea, but their disdain for Trump overrode their doubts. In California, as in Virginia, they used their power to obliterate Republican seats. When the battles finally abate, Florida could still act on redistricting. The net Republican advantage nationwide is likely to be small, but the lasting damage will be large. The authoritative website Sabato's Crystal Ball finds that only 13 seats in the whole country qualify as true, quotes, toss-ups. Another 25, quotes, lean toward one party, and 28 are in the, quotes, likely category, while 356 seats remain totally safe. This means that more than 85% of the voters next November will have no real choice when it comes to Congress. In effect, they live in one-party states, the very definition of autocracy. Quotes, elections are a way to hold politicians accountable for what their constituency wants. Political scientist Kosuke Imai, an expert on congressional districts, told the Harvard Gazette. But if many lawmakers are in safe seats, guaranteed to win by a relatively comfortable margin, there's less incentive to respond to what voters want. Legislators from safe districts also have less incentive to cooperate with lawmakers from the other party. Today's Congress, especially the House, is so polarized and so poisonous that members barely speak to each other across party lines, let alone negotiate and compromise. Barack Obama made this point in an old interview that Republicans played endlessly in ads opposing the referendum in Virginia. Quotes, because of things like political gerrymandering, said the former president, our parties have moved further and further apart, and it's harder and harder to find common ground. American negotiators spent 21 hours talking to Iranian counterparts in Islamabad earlier this month. When was the last time Democrats and Republicans spent anything like that time together on Capitol Hill? There's nothing new about gerrymandering, but the practice is, quotes, becoming a bigger threat than ever, notes the Brennan Center for Justice. Quotes, today, intricate computer algorithms and detailed data about voters' political preferences and behavior allow map drawers to draw districts with surgical precision. Add to that a harsh new reality, the Brennan experts continue. Map drawers in most of the country no longer have to fear judicial intervention. In 2019, the Supreme Court held that gerrymandering claims were a, quotes, political question, not a legal one, and beyond the reach of federal courts. The impact of gerrymandering has been aggravated by another trend, what's been called the big sort, the tendency of Americans to move to areas that feel familiar and friendly. As the national real estate brokerage Redfin predicted in 2022, quotes, people will vote with their feet, moving to places that align with their politics. The political analyst David Wasserman shrewdly observed after the 2020 election that Joe Biden won 85% of counties with a Whole Foods and only 31% of counties with a Cracker Barrel. Groups of like-minded people tend to become more extreme over time in the way that they're like-minded. Bill Bishop, the journalist who coined the term the big sort in 2008, told NPR, you can see that playing out in Congress. There are fewer people in the middle, and so politics becomes less about solving our problems anymore. It's about cheering for our side, and so we're stuck. Not quite. Politicians cannot control where people move, but they can control the redistricting process. And once Trump's insidious influence fades, they can regain their senses and revive the critical concept that districts should be drawn by independent commissions. To repurpose a phrase used by Barry Goldwater during his presidential run in 1964, voters deserve, quotes, a choice, not an echo. Here is an Our View opinion from the paper itself. Know your responsibilities after a crash. Car accidents, crashes, fender benders, call them what you will. Even the smallest of dings can dampen your day. But when you don't fully understand your responsibilities, you can be blindsided all over again. Always call police to the scene of a crash. The responding officers make an impartial report of the incident, which is important for insurance as well as law enforcement purposes. Once the responding law enforcement agency files the accident report, it's a public document available to view. There's another form that can come as a surprise, one that drivers must file within 10 days or risk license suspension. In New York State, after a motor vehicle crash that results in a person being injured or killed, or property damage of more than $1,000, all parties involved must submit a report of motor vehicle crash form to the DMV within 10 days of the incident. If a driver doesn't file a crash report within 10 days, it's a misdemeanor, and the DMV may suspend the driver's license and/or registration until the report is filed. The notice is printed at the top of the initial accident report that responding law enforcement officials create at the scene of a crash. Hopefully, the responding officer points it out. Otherwise, it could get lost in the fine print. The form is titled MV 104. It's available on the state DMV website. Take a look at it sometime. The form requires not only the driver's information, driver license, car registration, insurance, as well as the other parties involved, so make sure to ask to see the licenses, registrations, and insurance cards from anyone else involved at the scene. The back page of the form is full of detailed instructions. Once the front is filled out, fold the page over and line up the arrows to enter further information in boxes down the side of the form. Sound confusing? Just make sure to read everything carefully. Stressed about the deadline? The form can be submitted online through the ny.gov ID. New York has quite a few other of those, wait, there's a thing, that's a thing, traffic laws. Some are actively enforced, others just sit quietly in the books. Letting a car warm up in winter is technically illegal. State law prohibits leaving a vehicle unattended with the engine running. Known as puffing, it's a violation that often results in fines because an empty running car is an easy target for theft. And if the car is stolen, the owner could be liable for damages caused by the thief. New York has a slowpoke law. If a driver is cruising in the left lane and vehicles are stacking up behind, that driver can get ticketed, even if driving at the speed limit. Again, it is a violation that can result in fines. License plates are another sticking point. Unlike many states, New York requires 2 plates, front and rear, and both must be readable. One missing plate could mean an easy ticket. Obscuring a plate is illegal, and it can lead to fines or registration issues. Those TikTok hacks like sticking a leaf on a plate to trick toll cameras, the DMV is not amused. An insurance company may do the heavy lifting when it comes to finding fault and deciding compensation, but drivers have obligations as well. Traffic and motor vehicle laws are designed not just for safety, but also liability and enforcement after the fact. With summer road trips just around the corner, make sure to know your responsibilities before heading out. You're listening to a reading of articles and features from the Lockport Union-Sun Journal on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. Turning to the features column, Western New York's connections to the Titanic. Editor's note. This is an expanded and updated installment of Niagara Discoveries that originally was published in 2014. Although the anniversary of the sinking of the Titanic on April 15, 1912 has passed, it remains a topic that fascinates many people. Of the 2,224 passengers and crew, more than 1,500 perished, while 703 survived the disaster. Most of those who were lost were third class, sometimes called steerage, passengers. These people were primarily immigrants from Europe who were traveling to the United States in hope of finding a better life for themselves and their children. A good representation of these third-class passengers was the Goodwin family from Fulham, England, a working-class area in southwest London. Frederick Goodwin was a 42-year-old electrical engineer. He and his wife, the former Augusta Tyler, had 6 children, ranging in age from 6 years down to 19 months. Lillian, Charles, William, Jesse, Harold, and Sidney. Frederick's brother Thomas was living at 520 25th Street in Niagara Falls and working as a clerk at the Shelkoff power plant. Knowing Frederick's skill as an electrical engineer, Thomas persuaded his brother to come to Niagara Falls, where he was sure to find a job in the burgeoning electric power industry. The Goodwins sold their home in Fulham and booked passage on a small steamer to take them to New York. At the time of their scheduled departure, a coal strike was taking place in England, and their trip was canceled. The White Star Line transferred the Goodwins' tickets to the maiden voyage of the RMS Titanic. Any coal that was available had been taken for the large liners, Titanic included. Though there is no way of knowing what, one might speculate whether the Goodwins were excited about the change in plans. Titanic was the largest and most luxurious ocean liner in the world, and even third-class accommodations were considered superior to any other ship. The only drawback was that Frederick and the older boys, Charles and William, would be housed in the men's quarters, while Augusta, Lillian, Jessie, Harold, and baby Sydney were in the section for women and young children. The family could reunite for meals and recreation, but sleeping quarters were segregated by gender. At the other end of the spectrum, Edward Austin Kent, a well-known architect from Buffalo, was staying in a first-class stateroom. Kent had designed his family's store, Flint and Kent, on Main Street in Buffalo, as well as churches, temples, and other buildings in that city. He was returning home after an extensive tour of Europe and the Middle East. His companions on the voyage included several British and American literary personalities, as well as Archibald Gracie. Another member of this close-knit group was a middle-aged woman, Mrs. Helen Churchill Candy, who Kent befriended on the voyage. These first-class passengers formed what they called our coterie. Although Kent probably did not know it, he had a connection to another passenger on board. Henry Soothall was born in England in 1886 and came to the Buffalo area with his family in 1895, when he was 9 years old. They lived on East LaSalle Street in Kenmore, and Mrs. Soothall had a small confectionery shop at 2852 Delaware Avenue. Henry was a musician who, like Kent, was returning to Buffalo after a lengthy journey that had taken him and a friend, Howard Irwin, around the world. Excuse me. He was traveling in third class, and chances are his and Kent's paths never crossed. What connected Kent and Soothall was the Unitarian Universalist Church in Buffalo that Kent had designed in 1906. Soothall's father, Henry Sr., had done the plaster work in the church that Kent had designed. It is unlikely that the architect and the laborer had much contact with each other, but it is possible they may have met sometime during the construction. Unfortunately, the Goodwins, Edward Kent, and Henry Soothall all had one thing in common. None of them survived the sinking of the Titanic. As third-class passengers, the Goodwins and Soothall had very little chance of surviving the disaster. As a first-class male passenger, Kent had only slightly better odds of escaping death. Kent was reportedly last seen assisting women and children into the lifeboats, including a reluctant Mrs. Candy. Thinking she would perish, and Kent would not, she entrusted him with a miniature portrait of her mother. Kent made no attempt to save himself. Mrs. Candy and Archibald Gracie both survived, but Kent did not. When his body was found, he was still carrying Mrs. Candy's miniature, which was returned to her. Kent's body was brought back to Buffalo, and he is buried in Forest Lawn Cemetery. A memorial to him is located in the Unitarian Universalist Church in Buffalo. Henry Soothall's body was never found. His parents received $200 compensation from the White Star Line. A memorial service was held for him in their Kenmore home. The Goodwills all perished, and the only body to be recovered was that of baby Sydney, though at the time no one knew who he was. He was buried in the Titanic section of Fairview Cemetery in Halifax, Nova Scotia. The crew of the recovery boat paid to have a monument erected to the, quotes, unknown child. In 2007, through DNA testing, He was positively identified as Sidney Goodwin. His name was later added to the memorial. A more positive outcome with a local connection is that of third-class passenger May Elizabeth Howard. She was also from England and was 25 years old at the time of the sinking. Howard was on her way to her sister in Albion, Orleans County, and had secured a position as a nanny for a prominent family in that village. She later said she was thrown into collapsible lifeboat C, one of the last to leave the ship. She did make it to Albion and later moved to Hilton in Monroe County. She died in 1958 at the age of 73 and is buried in Boxwood Cemetery in Medina. A final note in the story. For reasons not entirely known, Sootall's friend Howard Irwin stayed in England. It must have been a last-minute decision, as his trunk made it onto the ship, but he did not. In 1993, Irwin's trunk was recovered from the ocean floor. Inside was the diary Irwin had kept on the journey. The first entry was rather prophetic. Quotes, "With luck, this trip will take us 2 years, and with bad luck, well, we are going anyway." This was submitted by Anne-Marie Linneberry, who is the Assistant Director of the Niagara History Center. You've been listening to a reading of articles and features from the current issue of the Lockport Union-Sun Journal. We read from the Lockport Union-Sun Journal every Saturday at 5 p.m. Your reader has been Paul Denning. Thank you for listening.
Coming up next in the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service, we have the Jamestown Post-Journal. At 7 o'clock, we got the Niagara Falls Review, and at 8 o'clock, we have the Off-Duty from the Wall Street Journal. Stay with us for these readings and more. You're listening to the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. Radio readers broadcast daily readings 24 hours a day of newspapers, magazines, and books to area people who are blind or have a print disability who are provided reading radios. Our broadcast signal is provided at no charge by WNED. Radio reading broadcasts throughout the city of Buffalo, Western New York, and Southern Ontario's Niagara Peninsula. For more information on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service, call us at 716-821-5555. following program is intended for listeners who are blind, have low vision, or have another print disability